Principle of functional composition versus superposition. Within the framework of the unification model of cosmic levels. 1. Principle of functional composition and emergent properties. 1.1 Ontological composition. Every physical entity exists and operates by virtue of the composition of its constituent elements. No structured entity can exist without underlying components. This compositional requirement is universal and applies equally across all cosmic scales, from the atomic domain to stellar and galactic systems. 1.2 Functional dependence. The functionality, operability, and dynamical behavior of any entity arise directly from the functionality of its constituent elements. If the constituent elements lack activity, interaction, or internal dynamics, the constructed system necessarily lacks functionality. Thus, functionality is not created at higher levels, but transmitted and structured through hierarchical composition. 1.3 Emergent properties and evolution. Emergent properties are the result of the cumulative interaction, organization, and progressive sophistication of the properties of constituent elements. Evolution, therefore, is not an abstract or probabilistic process, but a deterministic consequence of increasing structural and functional complexity across hierarchical levels. In the context of the unification model, this hierarchical emergence is governed by scaling relations such as in the scheme is exposed. These relations demonstrate that structure, functionality, and evolution are quantitatively determined by the properties of constituent elements and their geometric organization, governed fundamentally by π as a universal structural constant. 2. Functional continuity across cosmic scales. Within the unification model of cosmic levels, all physical systems, whether atomic or astronomical, are governed by the same principles of composition, functionality, and evolution. This equivalence is ensured through scaling coefficients such as length scaling coefficient, 2 pi x 10 power 22. This coefficient guarantees proportional equivalence between microcosmic and macrocosmic systems, preserving not only geometric structure but also functional behavior. Thus, an atomic system and a stellar system are structurally and dynamically analogous. Both consist of orbiting elements whose motion, stability, and evolution arise from the continuous interaction of their components under gravitomagnetic equilibrium. 3. Gravitomagnetic functional basis. The functionality of all systems is sustained by the equilibrium between gravitational forces, Fg concentric, contractive, magnetic forces, Fm expansive, distributive. Under the principle Fg equals Fm. This balance produces stable orbital configurations and continuous motion. Therefore, functionality inherently implies dynamic equilibrium, not static coexistence. 4. Incompatibility with the principle of superposition. Given the principle of functional composition, the concept of superposition, as traditionally formulated in quantum mechanics, becomes fundamentally incompatible with physical reality. Superposition implies that constituent elements can exist in multiple states simultaneously without defined functional activity. However, within this model, every constituent element must exhibit continuous motion, interaction, and evolution over time. Functionality is a necessary condition for existence. There is no physical basis for a state devoid of defined dynamical behavior. 5. Functional argument against superposition. If a constructed system exhibits motion, evolution, functional behavior, then this necessarily implies that its constituent elements are in motion, evolving, are actively interacting, and are therefore continuously generating and sustaining the system's behavior. Conversely, if constituent elements were static, invariable, or in a state of superposition, i.e., lacking defined functional dynamics, then the constructed system would also be static, invariable, and non-functional. This leads to a direct contradiction with empirical observation, as all physical systems exhibit continuous dynamical behavior. 6. Deterministic hierarchical reality. The principle of functional composition establishes a deterministic and hierarchical ontology of physical reality. All phenomena arise from structured interactions of component. Functionality propagates from lower to higher levels. Emergent behavior is causally rooted, not probabilistic. There is no ontological space for undefined or simultaneous states. Thus, physical reality is not a superposition of possibilities, but a continuous, functional, and dynamically evolving structure, governed by compositional laws and geometric scaling relations. 7. Conclusion. The rejection of superposition within this framework is not merely interpretative but structural. The requirement of continuous functional activity at all levels of composition excludes the possibility of indeterminate or non-functional states. Reality, therefore, must be understood as a hierarchically organized, functionally active, and geometrically constrained system, where all observable phenomena are the direct consequence of the dynamic behavior of their constituent elements across all cosmic scales.